What is up, guys? Welcome to Inner Alchemy. I'm your host, Sandal Roy, and here we have episode 8. And today we are talking about my new upcoming webinar on reclaiming the voice. Okay. Thanks so much for your patience, guys. I've missed you all. It's been a couple of weeks since the last transmission that I did the interview where I interviewed Dom, which was a massive, it was a huge, undertaking because obviously there was a lot of editing. So this one will obviously be a little bit less because it's just me. But yes, so thank you for giving me some grace, you know, in not posting as regularly as I usually do. I was just having the best week. My last week in Florida was my birthday week. I've just turned 40. I got super spoiled. Dom took me to Ginny Springs. We had a beautiful 3-day camping trip. We sat with some plant medicine, we, canoed, we kayaked through the springs, just beautiful crystal clear water. We dove into the springs as well, I snorkeled. I'm not free. Dom's really into free diving and he's trained, he's done a course. So he loved kind of diving really deep into the springs. Unfortunately, we did have a GoPro, but we had to return it because it was faulty. So unfortunately, we didn't get to film him diving down into the depths, which would have been amazing because he looks so good in his wetsuit. But it was really powerful for me to be there because swimming in those creeks and in those springs, it was such mermaid vibes, Ariel vibes. I felt I didn't feel like Ariel, but I felt like a reverse Ariel, trying to be part of this this hidden underwater world and wanting to be part of it and wanting to learn how to free dive so that I can dive down as well. But I'm a little bit scared of water and not the best swimmer. So I just kind of watched from above and Dom gave me a good show by diving and, doing flips and things in this beautiful, with this beautiful wetsuit with the flippers and stuff. It was really, he got a lot of compliments as well. So it was a really nice show. And while I was on that trip, I started downloading all the codes that I need for this webinar. It's going to be really, really powerful. And I'm going to talk you through some of what we're going to be covering in this video. So you know whether it's for you or not. So basically, this is something that I have been observing in the fields for the last year, actually. It's been about a year since it was around the time that me and Dom started talking, which was about a year ago. I should probably say that it's time to start celebrating, thinking about our 1-year anniversary. But what was I going to say? Yeah, so I noticed this upgrade that was happening in the fields for me at first, and then I've noticed it's happening for a lot of my clients. I've been able to make this do this in particular implant removal and template activation for a lot of clients, and I'm going to tell you what it is. So basically about a year ago we started talking, and he was telling me about some of his experiences with lucid dreaming, and he's pretty experienced with it and pretty knows what he's doing. And he said that one time him and his nephew decided to meet in the quantum field and have a lucid dream together, and I think that they arranged to meet. I'll have to ask him exactly the details. I think that they arranged to meet at a beach location, and so they both went to sleep at the same time, and they literally woke up and met at the beach and met under a particular palm tree that they said that they would meet. And he said it was incredible. Obviously, if you're used to lucid dreaming, stuff like that is still quite magical when it happens with somebody who's not used to it. Yeah, it was really I was just wow. Even though, I can traverse the field and I'm experienced with looking into other people's light bodies, it's still pretty powerful to hear that you can kind of introduce this to somebody else who hasn't experienced it before. So I kind of, flirtily was oh, why don't we try and meet right now in the field and see what happens, right? So he was he sent a gif of a dude flying into bed, and he was let's go. So we both took a nap, and for me, I didn't actually fall asleep. But I did go into the field and I did try and find this beach. And what happened was really interesting, actually. As I was kind of walking down the beach, I basically encountered Ursula the sea witch. Now, Ursula is basically like what? Okay, so one thing that we'll see in the fields quite often when I'm working on a client's field is Disney imagery. And Disney imagery is usually like a false template. It's basically like an imprinting. It's like an MK Ultra imprinting. Okay, basically. This is now going. If you haven't done your research on Disney is basically kind of nefarious. It's it's basically a form of kind of predictive programming, social engineering of children that targets children. I'm not saying it's completely out of pocket and you should never ever let your kids watch it, but it is very problematic. And if you have researched it, you'll know that there's a lot of subliminal sexual programming and subliminal sexual imagery in Disney films. I'll try and see if I can find some examples, like the Ariel, the Little Mermaid, the underwater castle is like all loads of phalluses. Sometimes you'll see characters that have like a bulge, like they've pitched a tent down there. There's like sometimes like windows in the background where you can see like nude people. Sometimes the word sex is spelled out subliminally in like smoke or whatever. So they do a lot of things like this. And, you could argue, it's just cartoonists who are just having a laugh, who are just having a joke. That's completely not appropriate. Even if that is the case and it's not intentionally nefarious, that's so completely inappropriate to be putting in children's content. That is an example of porn brain rot and a predator mind that is grooming children, okay? And that's what it is. Don't care if it's intentional or whether it's deliberate. Either way, it sexualizes children, okay? The subliminal messaging has been studied for decades, and, I don't want to hear anybody defending it. If you want to defend it, then don't work with me because you're a predator. Yes, so sometimes the archetypes in Disney have certain symbolism. It's all based on like Grimm's fairy tales and things like that. So a lot of the characters that you'll see in Disney have very archetypal energies that usually are borrowed from like mythology, like Norse mythology, pagan mythology, and going all the way back to Sumerian, biblical, Judaic, Egyptology, mythology. So these are basically very, very ancient archetypes. So you'll see things like Maleficent or Ursula or these characters, and then you've got the very innocent princess. This is basically like the Sophia versus the Dark Mother, okay? And I know that a lot of people in the dark feminine camp will argue that this is basically like demonization of the crone archetype, which is basically the fourth stage of divine feminine awakening. You've got maiden, mother, queen, and crone. And the crone is actually the most powerful divine feminine archetype because she's the one that holds the most wisdom. And she's the one that's integrated the most of her masculine energy. She's actually in union with herself. She's not even necessarily in union with a beloved. She's actually become, what's the word? She's unified with Creator and able to channel her own wisdom from her own divine masculine. Maybe she is in union, but I do agree, okay, because what they've done with the crone archetype is kind of created this kind of like, if in Snow White, they have like the witch with the poisoned apple and things like that. But Dark Mother is actually a real entity that you'll see in the fields, okay? She's in a very inverted feminine consciousness, a demonic feminine consciousness that works with a legion of demons called the Lilu, okay? These are very, very ancient class of demons that go all the way back to, they've been recorded since Sumerian times, okay? In Sumerian times, they were referred to as the Lilu. In more recent years, they started being referred to as Lilith, okay? Lilith is not the first woman or the first wife of Adam, okay? Lilith is actually an androgynous shape-shifting succubus demon, and I will do separate transmission talking about Lilith, okay, because I did work with Lilith in 2018 when I wasn't fully awake to who this entity was. A lot of women in the dark feminine space will advocate working with Lilith. It's very dangerous, and I will do a separate transmission talking about why and how it can actually really ruin your life. But in this, when I was exploring the quantum fields, I encountered Ursula as an archetype of Dark Mother, okay? So basically, the quantum field will communicate with you using symbols that are understandable to your subconscious mind. Same like in the dream space, okay? That's why we have, like, you know, dream interpretation. Your mind, your subconscious is basically translating concepts that the quantum field is telepathically communicating with you using imagery that your subconscious can interpret, okay? So these have universal meanings, and obviously sometimes the interpretation can be a little bit subjective, okay? But Ursula is a sea witch, okay? She is Dark Mother. She is basically like the head honcho of the Lilu, okay? And in the film Ariel, she basically works Ariel goes to her after having to deal with her very overbearing father, King Triton, who is basically like a representation of Enki, or Poseidon in the Greek pantheon, okay, the sea king. He's basically like a fallen angelic, essentially. I do believe he's a real entity in the fields, and actually he's had quite a big influence over even some of these religions that people follow, okay? In certain religions, he's also known as Yahweh. He's not God, okay? He's an Elohim that chose to go his own way and follow the laws of free will and separate his connection to Prime Creator, God's source, and the Godhead, and just do his own thing and get everybody worshipping him like some kind of demigod, okay? He's an Elohim, he's a fallen Elohim, he's an archdemon, okay? That's what that is. So it's in the Sumerian pantheon, they refer to them as Anunnaki, okay? According to my research and my understanding and what I've seen in the field, I believe that the Anunnaki are Elohim, okay? They're fallen Elohim mostly. I don't think that they're ETs or extraterrestrials. I mean, maybe they are. Maybe it's both, or a little bit of both, but that's what I've observed. So because of, you know, the dark tyrannical father, Enki, Yahweh, Triton, Ariel doesn't feel like she can kind of have the freedom that she wants to explore this other world that she wants to be a part of, okay? You know, she's collecting all these different objects and wants to kind of really explore, and you know, see the world, see another part of the world, and falls in love with this guy who's from a different race, essentially. He's human and she's a mermaid. So she goes to Ursula begging to give her legs, because obviously her father is very strict and would never allow it. So she goes to his arch nemesis. So obviously Ursula's not Ariel's friend. If you've seen the film, you'll know that Ursula sees a great opportunity in the fact that, you know, Triton's youngest and, you know, most prized, most talented daughter is coming to her, wanting a favor. And Ariel was in the film is very, very known for, I don't know about in the original story if it tracks exactly the same. There are some differences between the Disney version and the original Hans Christian Andersen version, the original Grimm's fairy tale, because in the Grimm's fairy tale she kind of dies in the end and becomes part of the clouds and stuff, and, you know, in the Disney version she gets her happy ending, obviously. But in the film, she's very known for her voice, okay? She has this beautiful voice that's very, you know, celebrated, and, you know, she's called upon to perform for the kingdom and sing for everybody, but she doesn't want to. She just wants to be human and be part of this world and be with her crush, Eric, right? So Ursula knows that her voice is basically her most precious asset. So that's the one thing that she decides to bargain for her, barter with Ariel in return for the legs, because she obviously knows that Ariel is desperate. And so this is just a very, very powerful analogy for how we give away our most sacred gifts, our most sacred assets in return for worldly pleasures, worldly wealth, worldly abundance, material things and whatever, okay? And to try and be part of a world in which we don't belong, trying to be part of the matrix, essentially, instead of creating a new world, okay, where we're more, where our natural gifts are celebrated, okay? And I'm not saying that, like, she should, obviously in the film, she does get her happy ending. She becomes human after all. Like, there are going to be spoilers in this. And it's, through her father's magic eventually, because he realizes that she would be much happier that way. And so she had the magic all along in her own ancestral bloodline. She had the magic that, she probably could have done it herself. If her father had the power to do it, why wouldn't she have the power to do it? But it was through reclaiming the voice, okay? Because Ursula in the film steals the voice from Ariel and uses it to seduce Eric, so to seduce Ariel's crush, okay? So there's some karmic interfacing symbolism there as well, like how others will steal your codes and use your codes, not just to get into karmic interfacing with your true beloved who you might not be in union with, and both of you might be trapped in a karmic interface with other people, or just might be in separation for whatever reason, because you're not reclaiming your authentic voice and your authentic medicine or song or whatever it is that you're here to share with the world. But also your, whatever is owed to you, your natural abundance, like just how you generate wealth in the world, okay? Speaking your truth is how you share your message with the world, and it's how people find you. It's your authenticity, okay? It magnetizes your organic abundance, your divine union, your highest timeline, your soulmate clients, all of that stuff, okay? If you're not being authentic and you have blockages in the throat, then that's what will happen. So what I saw when I was in the field was basically these implants in my throat space. They were shutting down my throat space all the way down to the heart. They were basically gadgets and gizmos, okay? So quite often implants can appear like these kind of like wiry looking things, or like AI or bionic looking things. So they were like these rusted like gadgets and gizmos and things that she'd been collecting that were like clogging down and shutting down her authentic voice and preventing her from singing her song so that her beloved could find her. And it was connected to Dark Mother, who will operate through it will operate through your own wounds and your own fears. It's basically essentially a crucifixion wound, okay? It's your fear of being persecuted that basically creates a vulnerability in your light body that allows that implant to anchor in, okay? And it also works through the wounds of others, okay? So, when you have this feeling of like, what will people think? People will be upset. I'm going to trigger people. That's because that's also working through other people. So what was happening for me at this time is I was actually being targeted by somebody who I'd worked with before, and who'd actually threatened that if I mentioned her, I'm not going to mention her name, and it's not even worth it to me right now, but she'd actually threatened she'd been targeting me and attacking me for my Palestine activism. She has some Zionist sympathies and was working with Zionists at the time. And so she attacked me and said that if I mentioned her again, that she would have me deplatformed. And it might have been an empty threat, but I do think that she does actually have the contacts necessary at Meta or Google to be able to make that happen. So it had it did actually have an impact on me, where I felt silenced by her, and I felt scared to continue to speak up against not just the genocide but the entire Zionist agenda. And when I tracked, basically I was connecting this dark mother was working through her, and also through my own fears, my own crucifixion fears of not just being silenced, not just being deplatformed, but being silenced in other more nefarious ways as well. Because I do believe that some of the people that she's connected to are dangerous. So have a look at if this is resonating with you, and you feel like your voice, not just the words that you speak, but your medicine, whatever the medicine is, whether it's music, whether it's singing, whether it's writing, whether it's art, whether it's dance, whether it's engineering, whether it's something, it could be something completely different. Okay, maybe you have like some invention that you need to share with the world, and you're worried that you'll be targeted, tracked down, suppressed somehow. It might be because you have these crucifixion wounds going. And I'm not saying that these fears aren't justified. Okay, we know what type of world we live in. Okay, we know that a lot of innovators and pioneers and truth speakers and artists and healers and dissidents and rabble rousers and feather rufflers are targeted. Okay, one of the greatest amongst us, Yeshua, Jesus Christ, was crucified for speaking truth and bringing the peace, bringing the message of like peace and love, and saying a big fuck you to oppressive systems as well, was literally crucified, okay, and was hated by many in his time, okay, and is still hated, and still many of his followers are persecuted, okay. And I'm not a Christian, I'm not into organized religion, but I do study organized religion, and I do think that there are a lot of beautiful, very truthful codes in all of the religions actually, but I don't follow any one particular one, because I believe that there's distortions in all of them as well. So, these are very real fears, okay? But by clearing this out and working at the root level and truly connecting to Prime Creator God's source, and giving our lives over to Prime Creator God's source, and say, let your will, not mine, be done, that is how you start magnetizing your highest timeline, okay? Like I've said, this is really simple stuff, okay? This is what I keep on saying over and over again. Your divine union, your purpose and mission, your natural abundance, everything that you need to be supported to do your mission here on earth will start, all that energy will start moving as you start to clear this, okay? And it's not an overnight process, okay? I've had to clear this multiple times for myself, okay? And I've worked on Dom's field multiple times as well, and still sometimes I have to keep on clearing these implants, because there's so many different layers of persecution, fears about showing up. And every time we show up a little bit more and start sharing more of our medicine and speaking more of our truth, we start getting more and more attention and more energy building and blessings. But then there's also more fears and more targeting and things like that, because you start being effective and you start being a threat to the system. So you do have to continue to do the clearing. So I don't know if there's a point that you'll get to where you never have to, but if you join the webinar, you'll have access to the webinar. You can listen to it over and over again every time you need to like just go into that space again and clear it. And sometimes the blockages are not just in the throat or the heart space. Sometimes they can even be in the sacral or the womb, okay? Because especially for women, your throat portal, the voice box, and the yoni look super similar, because they are very connected. I've talked about this in previous videos, how connected they are. When this area is unlocked through divine union, through, hieros, connecting with your beloved intimately, that starts to generate so much energy, and it starts to, you start, transmuting your sexual energy and your creativity and sharing your gifts with the world. The inspiration starts to strike you. The clitoris is connected to the pineal, so you start receiving divine visions and divine guidance, and you literally just start channeling so much wisdom, okay? And it even starts happening before you are together with your beloved, even when you start the hieros process just by yourself, in preparation for divine union, when you start balancing your masculine and and feminine energy and start actually saying, okay, I'm now waiting for my beloved, and I'm now going to start doing God's work. I'm going to start alchemizing my masculine and feminine polarities, healing my relationship to the masculine or the feminine. And you slowly start that merge, and your beloved will start to feel that. They'll be doing their process as well. You'll slowly start to become magnetized to each other, because both of you are speaking your voice, sharing your gifts with the world, and you're doing your divine mission. Okay, so that process begins even before you get into union. So what can happen is sometimes the implants can be in the sacral, especially if you have any kind of sexual trauma, but even if you have like ancestral targeting off the womb space. So if there's been any kind of sexual trauma in your lineage, in your mothers, your grandmothers, and things like that, it's that fear of sexual violence also that gets women to shut down their throat. Okay, because when women do not speak their truth, not just women in particular, it can be anyone, all of us actually, but women in particular, and those that hold the more feminine pole, okay, because on this planet, the Sophianic energy, the feminine energy, the principle of care, compassion, community, those things have all been suppressed, okay, because they can't be monetized, right? You can't put a price on those things, okay? Sophia is literally priceless, okay? You cannot put a price on her. And when you can't put a price on her, then capitalism has just deemed her worthless, because they can't control her. So, it all goes back to the cremation of care, the sacrifice of the goddess, okay? When your Sophianic voice is silenced, and it is being deliberately silenced on this planet, and you're not speaking your truth, oppressive systems can flourish, okay? When you actually start speaking your truth and sharing your story, whatever it is and however it is, oppressive systems start to crumble. You start to become a threat, okay? And the more of us that start doing this collectively, we start building systems and networks that are a huge threat to the global order. And it's not going to be I don't think it's going to end up being like this bloody war, okay? Yes, there are several genocides and conflicts happening all over the world, but the more of us that start to do this work and start to say that we don't consent to this, and we're going to start creating new systems that are more in harmony, life-based systems that are more in harmony with the earth, and respecting the earth, respecting animals, respecting people, respecting our communities, respecting indigenous and indigenous ways, we'll just start to create these alternative systems that people will start putting their trust in, and the old systems will start to become completely irrelevant. So it's really, really essential that we do this work. I want you all to join me. Let me just check my notes to see if there's anything that I've left out, okay? Yeah, you basically, okay, so I said you lose more by self-censoring. Yes, you lose more by self-censoring, because if you're self-censoring, you don't have your authentic tribe. You don't have your authentic people around you, because you're not being authentically you. You probably are in the wrong relationship. I was for many years, because I was speaking my truth, but I was also compromising in so many ways, because I thought polarity, right? I'll do a separate video talking about polarity principles and where I'm at with all of that, and how much I've learned, and where I think it's helpful and where I think it's bullshit. Because too much polarity where you're with somebody who's actually too different to you, you don't necessarily need to integrate those traits of the other person, because that's not your true beloved. If you're not speaking authentically who you really are, then you're likely making compromises in order to stay in a relationship with somebody who probably isn't your divine beloved, okay? Because your divine beloved is coded for you. God has designed them to be your mirror, and not that you're going to be exactly the same in every way, but you are going to have a shared mission, okay? And to access that shared mission, you have to be doing your divine mission already. That's how you recognize each other. That's how you become magnetized to each other. And you have to be following your authentic templating, okay? So speaking your truth. So me starting to speak up for Palestine and really going balls to the wall and completely uncompromising, literally my karmic interface started to fall apart. And, you know, I was just like, what is, like, I've done so much work on myself, like, to have this relationship and to finally be in a healthy relationship with a man who's not a narcissist. And that's unfortunately how low my bar was because of my negative templating around relationships. And if that's you, don't shame yourself if your bar is really low. We've been so targeted on this planet, okay? We've been so targeted on this planet. Our gender principle, the relational misery that's running rampant on this planet has programmed women into accepting such low bar behavior. And this is one of the reasons why I want to help women heal that, because I've been healing it for myself, okay? It's been one of my biggest challenges on this planet. On this plane, in this realm, in this lifetime. Yeah, and I do think it's one of the biggest problems that we're seeing, because it kind of underpins everything. You know, a lot of the issues that we're seeing with intergenerational trauma are basically being passed down to children because women are getting into relationships with these reptilian masculines who are mimicking the frequency of their true beloved, just in some small ways. But because we have such limiting beliefs around what divine union actually is and what it's supposed to feel like, we accept really low bar treatment. So, you know, leveling up those standards all the time and focusing on your inner union and just listening to God and doing what God tells you to do, and continually focusing on your medicine, your truth, your voice, and what you're here to share with people will have you continually accessing that higher and higher timeline. So even if you are in a relationship and you're not sure, maybe they are the real one, maybe they're not, the best way to find out is by continually seeking that union with Creator and just being true to your natural templating and speaking your truth and reclaiming your voice. So I hope that you join me. It's just £11 on early bird. That is going to last for a week. I'm not sure the exact date because I'm not sure exactly when this video is going to go out. I literally just landed back in London like 2 days ago and I've just been unpacking and stuff. So it will say that I'll put a link in the description below to the sales page, and it will give you the dates on how long the early bird lasts, and then it will go up to £22. So it's still really, really affordable. It's a really accessible way to access working with me. Quantum field work is such a powerful tool for healing and clearing distortions in your field and accessing a much higher timeline around relationships, around abundance, around mission and purpose, and just all that good stuff. So I hope to see you there, guys. Let me know if you have any questions. Leave those in the comment box below. If you want to book a one-on-one session with me or a package, the link for that is in the description box below. And if you want to join my evergreen course, Reclaim Your Crown, which heals trauma, purges trauma from the body, it's an excellent addition to field work as well. The link for that is also in the description. Okay, thanks for watching. If you're still with me, you are one of my OGs. I will love you and leave you, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace out. One love, guys.